Was your father in Atlanta still?
My father was in Atlanta, yes.
So did you sort of...
That was my purpose for going to Atlanta, because I was on this mission to have this relationship with him and get to know him and develop a relationship with his mother and my sister. So that's exactly where I wanted to be.
And did that happen? Those relationships forming?
The attempt happened, yes. I tried and had a relationship with my sister, tried to have a relationship with my father. You know, it's just
not available.
Some people are set in their ways, and there's nothing you can do to change them.
And what about your grandmother?
Just odd people.
Does your sister have a relationship with, a better relationship with your father and grandmother?
She tries harder.
So it's just them. It's not
it's
a race issue.
It's not, definitely not a race issue. My sister is full black. Her mother's black. And she's tried probably harder later in life, as to where I was trying harder earlier in my life. I have a lot of things going on in my life that I just don't know that I'm ready to devote all that time to nurturing a relationship that's not reciprocal.
So how has all of this informed your racial identity today, do you think?
Well, until today, actually, I thought that I didn't really think about being mixed, or identifying more with black or identifying more with white. But having this conversation with you, I realize it definitely plays much more of a part in my life than I really led myself to believe. And when it comes to dating, not so much when it comes to friendships, but more specifically when it comes to dating, or even interactions at jobs, influences and maybe clothing, or things that I listen to, it definitely, it doesn't dictate, but it plays a part. Yeah.
Do you have an easier time forming close relationships, with males or females, that are white or black?
When it comes to males, and this is solely based on what I'm around, based on my likes, I would have to say black males, easier. Females, it's either or. I have a slew of friends, and they're in all different races, all different countries. But just based on the environments, I tend to meet more black males than white males, and therefore I befriend more black males than white males.
So have you not had much an experience with you not being black enough to fit in with certain groups of people?
Yes.
Does that has come up for you?
Yes, definitely. Matter of fact, I remember one of my biggest crushes in high school. After maybe 8 months or so, we had been kicking it pretty hard, and then all of a sudden one day he says, "You're not black enough for me."
He was black?
He was black, yeah. He was going actually to the college. He was going to college near where I lived. And that crushed me for a long time. That really crushed me. Almost felt inadequate with every other black male that I met after that, until about the age of 25. And that definitely played a part in my interactions with black males.
What do you think what fault, and there are quotes around that, did he find?
Yeah, I've spent a long time trying to figure that out, and I guess what it comes down to, it's not so much that I wasn't black enough, it was that I wasn't as involved in the hip-hop culture as he probably had wanted at the time, his ideal mate to be with, or to be. Growing up in the Midwest, I didn't have a lot of access to the popular artists and the rap that was going on in New York. So, I listened to like White Snake and Metallica and Garth Brooks and Amy Grant.
Yeah.
Mariah Carey, etc. So, musical tastes my musical taste hadn't evolved the way I guess for him a black person should have, and I wasn't aware of a lot of the music that was so important to him at the time. So I really honestly believe that it really had a lot to do with music.
Music, wow.
More than anything else.
Interesting. And what about, I mean, because your schoolmates were predominantly white for a long time, and you didn't want to date the one black boy that was available, and everyone
Right.
assumed you would, get married one day. What did you have crushes on white
Of
boys
course.
at school, and whatever happened with that?
In elementary, I remember when the first time you like a boy, it's supposed to be one of the most happiest and cutest times, which usually ends up in being one of the times your feelings get hurt the most. There was one boy I had a crush on for like 2 years, and finally, after 2 years, this boy tells one of his friends to tell me, like, tell her, yeah, I like her, but my mother won't let me date a black girl. And that was still at the point where I didn't even realize that I was that different, so I didn't really get it, and that really hurt my feelings, and it made me, I think at that point, I started to feel just different, and that I didn't belong to anybody, black, white, yellow, red, anything. Like, I just felt like I was in my own little box. Then again, in high school, I was never the prettiest. I was, I had big hair that was unruly and uncontrollable and undesirable by their standards. And
These are still white standards, right?
white standards.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, I never got the attention from the boys. And, the boys always like my friends. They always wanted to be my friend, but they never wanted to, quote unquote, date me. And I don't think I really started, it didn't really start to play a toll on me until, like sophomore year of high school, when I started realizing, like, oh, nobody likes me.
Yeah. And, I mean, do you feel like you have ever shaken that, not that feeling, but the feeling of, oh, I'm in my own little box?
For the most part, yeah. For the most part, I've come into a group of amazing people who completely allow you to be yourself, and my friends come from many different backgrounds and races and cultures, and it only makes me feel more comfortable being myself. But that's not until the past 2 or 3 years. So,
Right.
I spent a good portion of the first part of my life feeling like I never belonged to anything.
And do you think that has somehow made you a little more self-conscious, or a little more, like, I don't know, apt to maybe censor yourself, and now you've started peeling away those
Definitely so.
instincts
Yeah, definitely
that were
so.
learned?
For a long time, if we were in a group of people, I might want to say something, but to avoid having any more attention placed on me, I would just kind of sit there. Or, I would say something real quiet. Like, I never wanted to be the one that just burst out and said something and have all the attention on me, because I felt like if I had attention on me, it wasn't necessarily going to be positive or uplifting. It was going to be, I was going to be judged or ridiculed for what I was saying or doing.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you have a unique perspective on race?
Definitely so. I definitely think I have
talking about
a unique perspective, because, I have some radical black friends, and very strong in their opinions, and I have white friends who aren't necessarily racist, but they live in their white world, aside from having a few friends outside of that world, and I find myself one of the most people that's less focused on race than those around me who might be like full black or white or Asian or whatever. And even to the point where they're telling a story, and when they tell a story, they have to point out either the gender or the race of the person, and it's really irrelevant, and it makes no sense to even add that in there.
Yep.
But if it's one of my black friends saying, oh, I was in the store and this white girl, why does she have to be a white girl? Why can't she just be like this
girl.
crazy girl? Like, so in saying that, yes, my perspective, I feel, is not as defining, I guess, as other people's perspectives. Like, You know, if somebody's crazy, they're just crazy. They're not crazy because they're white. They're not crazy because they're black. They're just crazy.
What is your take on whiteness in America, and what is your take on blackness in America? Which is, I know, are really broad questions.
Well, I guess from my experience, I can say neither is easy. We live in America. I don't feel like anything's easy for any of us, but to grow up being white with white parents generally means, this is generally speaking, generally means that you're able to grow up and be you and be free and be whoever you want and still be socially accepted by your community, by your parents, by your peers. But to grow up in a black community, which is not the case for me, so this is just, I'm basing this off of stories that I've heard from my friends, you're constantly at war with not only yourself but the community around you. You're constantly being ridiculed, you're constantly questioning yourself, and it builds an insecurity in yourself, which then prevents you from being you, who you really are. And that in itself is crippling to any individual. Mm-hmm. So, you know, then you grow up to be these angry black men and angry black women, and nobody can understand why they're so angry, but their whole life they've had to suppress who they really are. So, you know, it gets to a point where the suppression builds up into anger, and the only way you can express yourself is by being angry. And it's really sad, but, you know, anybody that has to live through being suppressed, it's an energy that just builds, and more times than not, it's a negative energy than it is a positive energy.
Yeah. If you had a message to give to people on either side, and I don't know that you do, but if so, do you know what it might be? Like, as someone in the middle that can kind of look...
It's much easier said than done, especially when you're going through puberty, is you just have to stay true to yourself. You can only be who you want to be and who you are, and trying to conform only builds resentment and makes you out to be a less desirable person than what you're probably seeking to be. So just learn to love yourself, embrace your culture and your heritage, because without that, you wouldn't be you. So that's all you can do.